Week 9 is in the books, done and dusted. Let's go over our Week 10 power rankings.
Inside, and a beauty! Hall running free! Brees Hall inside the 10! He's gonna score!
What is going on, guys? Welcome back to Talking Jets with Tigo. My name is Tigo, and today we're going to be going over the New York Jets top 10, not the New York Jets, I'm sorry, the NFL's top 10 teams. They're my power rankings. These are the top 10 teams according to me. I had to bust out the old school Geno jersey after what we saw from the Seattle Seahawks, but before we talk about them, let's talk about the team at number 10. So at number 10 for me right now is the Cincinnati Bengals. They edge out the Baltimore Ravens, who were at 10 last week, and the Bengals were 10 the week before that. It was just the way that the Bengals methodically and just absolutely annihilated the Panthers, that the Ravens' performance didn't really affect the decision, right? It didn't matter what the Ravens did. It was more how dominant the Bengals were against the Panthers, a team that has looked really good since firing their head coach, trading away Christian McCaffrey. Like, they've looked decent under the new head coach and PJ Walker and everything like that. But the Bengals, 42-21, absolute annihilation in my opinion. That was insane. But let's move on to number 10. Number 10 is a team that's falling. They were previously 6, and they fall to 9. And the unfortunate thing is they're coming off of a bye week. They didn't play a game, and it's one of those, it's recency bias. It's what have you done for me lately? And so the Giants fall from 6 to 9. There's no real reason for it other than I think the performances that we got from some of these players and some of these teams that actually played this week just elevated them above what I think the Giants are right now. So the Giants take a tumble and they fall to 9, and they get leapfrogged by a team that was below them. And it kind of hurts and breaks my heart that Seattle stays at 8. I just realized that they stayed at 8 because I wanted to put them higher, because they had a really, really good big win over the Cards. But just looking at these top 7 teams, there's not a real team where I look at it and I go, you know what, this team deserves to drop or anything like that. So the Seattle Seahawks stay at 8, which is a bit unfortunate, but they get an absolutely massive win over the Cardinals, who are a legitimate team. That's a divisional game, as we know, for them. And so the Cardinals now lead the NFC West, and you got to put some respect. That's why I'm wearing the Geno jersey. I'm disappointed that I have them at 8, but that's where they are. And I could hear the argument that I could flip 7 and 8, but the way the Titans, who are my number 7 team, played against the Kansas City Chiefs, taking that team to overtime and literally only losing the game because 15 is an absolute magician. They were in that game the entire time, and that's absolutely huge. Again, the Titans and the Seahawks should be higher up on the list, but unfortunately other teams just have had better, more dominant performances, and I can't leapfrog those two teams, unfortunately. Then we move on to number 6, a team that had previously fallen out of the top spots but reclaims it, and that's the New York Jets. The New York Jets with a big win against the Buffalo Bills. A massive upset for anyone who's not a New York Jets fan. I called this, not really. But this is a huge statement game now. The AFC East is a toss-up. We have 4 teams above 500, 3 teams with 6 wins. The division is all in and all to play for, and this is huge. You know, this is a big win, keeping the New York Jets in the playoff conversation, getting a win over my last week's number 1 team in the NFL. You got to love to see what you're seeing from the Jets defensively, offensively, the whole way around. Then we move on to number 5, a team that stayed put. I didn't feel like they lost anything. I didn't feel like they gained anything. They're just going to stay put, and that's the Dallas Cowboys. Dallas Cowboys, obviously, they had a bye, but they're still 6-2. That defense is built incredibly well. They're going to get healthy. Dak Prescott is back. You know, they've got really good offensive weapons. Dallas is built really, really well. Honestly, the only question mark that we have on Dallas is the head coach. And that's really it. I don't know if I necessarily believe in Mike McCarthy, but that roster is good enough to carry Mike McCarthy's incompetences and things that he has that I'm not a big fan of as a head coach. Then we move on to number 4. Number 4 stays the same as last week. The Minnesota Vikings. The Minnesota Vikings, I felt like should have fell a couple of spots or something along those lines because they were barely able to beat the Washington Commanders, but Washington has looked incredibly well and incredibly good since switching to Taylor Heineke, and Minnesota is still 7-1, and I'm not going to say that the Cowboys are better than the Vikings. I'm not ready to say that the Jets are better than the Vikings or the Titans are better than the Vikings. So the Vikings stay at 4, but tentatively. They're kind of on thin ice in this top 4 spot because they're keeping on barely winning games, and their roster is much better than just barely winning games. Then we move on to the top 3, which in the past 2 weeks have been the same, and we finally got a shakeup at number 3. No, it's not the Philadelphia Eagles. It's the Buffalo Bills falling from 1 down to the 3 spot. They lost to the Jets, and after a loss, you can't stay the best team in the NFL. We saw the chinks in the armor for Buffalo. Josh Allen looked bad against the New York Jets defense, and that's not a bad thing. The New York Jets defense, I'm on this boat now. They're the best defense in the NFL. But for Josh Allen to look that bad against that defense, they're supposed to be a Super Bowl contender. It's not supposed to matter who's on the other side of the field. You know, they're supposed to be the best team in the NFL. To lose to the Jets the way that he did, to throw 2 interceptions, this loss doesn't all fall on Josh Allen, by the way. It was very stale offensive play calling from their offensive coordinator. The defense, who is pretty good at stopping the run, wasn't able to stop the run. Buffalo falls from 1 to 3. That means that the Philadelphia Eagles are now the second best team in the NFL, according to Tigo. Yes, they got a big win over the Houston Texans, but the one reason, and I was ready to give Philly the number 1 spot this week if they were to go out there and absolutely dominate the Houston Texans, but I watched every second of every snap of that game, and Philly got lucky at the end to put the score at 29-17. Houston was in that game for a long time, and Houston is by far and away the worst team in the NFL. You started to see some chinks in the armor in Philadelphia. That does not matter, though. Philly is now 8-0. They are still the only undefeated team in the NFL, and they continue that streak. But after seeing the magic that we saw Sunday night from Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs, it's hard for me not to put Kansas City as the best team in the NFL right now. It very clearly looks like if the AFC playoffs, if you want to get to the Super Bowl, you got to go through Kansas City. All roads lead to Kansas City and playing at Arrowhead. They are playing kind of like MVP, that MVP year for Patrick Mahomes. It is free, it's loose, it's dynamic, and they lost a massive weapon in Tyreek Hill, and we see what he's doing in Miami, but they're filling that out, and they're filling that void left by Tyreek Hill by just offensive production by committee. Everybody's getting touches. Everybody's getting their shot. That offensive line is doing their job. The run game is kind of but they've got time to fix that. Man, Kansas City is playing excellent football, and it's hard for me not to put Kansas City as the best team in the NFL. Guys, let me know what you think about my power rankings going into Week 10. And last but not least, go Jets.